Hello everyone, this is me, Mike, and welcome to today's Destiny episode. And this time we have a patch update. Bungie released version 1.1.1 for Destiny today, and it's subtitled The One About Weapon Rebalance. Destiny Update 1.1.1 brings you a round of weapon balancing perk fixes, including the heavy ammo fix and other issues. Alright, let's see what this one is about, and we go into detail of every step listed. First up, we have weapon tuning. There's a detailed article about weapon tuning that you can go to in the link in the description box below. It's kind of like a description why Bungie designed the patch they did. Basically, they looked at the weapon usages, decided that pulse rifles were underused, shotguns were underused, and auto rifles were overused, and that's why we have the weapon adjustments that we have in this patch. Let's go forward. First point, a general issue fixed. An issue in which armor with perks that increase ammunition carrying capacity resulted in ammunition loss upon respawn. We've been waiting very long for this guy to be fixed. This is the dreaded heavy ammo glitch, and it made raid groups use a whole lot of heavy ammo since basically every time you wipe you would lose most of your heavy ammo reserves so that you spawn with neither, and it took Bungie quite a while from the announcement that they're working on this till they actually fixed it. So basically until today, or they released the fix today. So this is great news for everyone that's dreading this error in the raid, and I've been raiding today and didn't happen to me, so I can confirm that this is actually fixed. Decreased overpenetration value for weapons with armor piercing perks. This means that overpenetrating for some reason has been too strong. They decreased the value for it, for armor piercing. So they didn't announce that before. It still means that bullets or the armor piercing perk still overpenetrates, but the value is less. That's fine with me. I don't think it's a very significant adjustment. Next up, we have fixed an issue where items from the PS3 or Xbox 360's Destiny demo were using old power values. They have been adjusted to regular levels. This is interesting only for Destiny demo players. It's nice to see that Bungie still cares about the demo players, because that means they care about the new user base, as well as over the existing user base. The Song of EU weapon tooltip now advertises the correct magazine size. And I believe there was a difference. The Song of EU weapon tooltip would report the very standard weapon or magazine size for that weapon class, whereas it had less. I think it was a difference of 1 or 2, like 16 and 15, something like that. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm glad they fixed this. It wasn't too much of an issue though. Shoot to loot. 2-second cooldown added to the perk to prevent extra ammunition gains while ammunition bricks despawn. This was a kind of a glitch where when you had a shoot to loot weapon with a higher fire rate, you could actually shoot the same ammo pack multiple times, so that, for example, from a heavy ammo pack you would get more than one pickup. They fixed that so that now the shoot to loot extra ammunition you gain only triggers the first time you shoot something, and then you'll have a 2-second cooldown, and within those 2 seconds the ammo bricks despawn, so no chance on triggering it multiple times with the same ammunition brick. The Dark Breaker perk will now correctly damage Hive Shriekers. The Snap Discharge will now increase attack speed as per the description. This is a Warlock perk, if I'm not mistaken, and Snap Discharge was supposed to increase the attack speed, but it really didn't, so they fixed that in this update. The Thunderer perk now has priority on the Force Horseman tooltip. I actually don't own the Force Horseman, so I don't know what's wrong with that, couldn't verify. And Full Auto fixed an issue with the weapons perk stopped working while the trigger was being held down. So, other than the occasional jamming of your scout rifle, a weapon with full auto would not trigger the full auto even though you had the perk unlocked if the trigger was held down in certain scenarios. Now here's where it gets interesting. These are the weapon adjustments. First up, auto rifles. Bungie saw that auto rifles have been by far the most used weapon classes in PvE and PvP, so they decided to reduce the base damage of auto rifles by 2.5%. And I'm a big fan of this update. 2.5% is not terribly much, but it's kind of like a tuning, as they said, so it goes into the correct area to balance weapons and weapons performance. So I'm a huge fan. 2.5 is not too terribly much for all of you that love your auto rifles. You still will love your auto rifles. It just means compared to the other weapons, auto rifles get a little bit of a nerf, whereas pulse rifles get a huge buff, but I'll get to that later. And they reduce the effective range values. So that means that your auto rifles, like the Vanquisher 3 or something like that, really need to have high stability to be very effective across range. Otherwise, they're more for short to medium range weapons. Next up, we have pulse rifles. Pulse rifles get an increase in base damage by 9.7%. Now, why is this 9.7% and not 10? My hunch is that there's some weapon thresholds here, and they dropped the pulse rifle's weapon threshold just above the next tier, and that was sufficient enough for 9.7% instead of 10%. Otherwise, maybe with 10% they would increase it into another tier, and they didn't want to, so that's why they went with 9.7%. It's a little bit weird that they have this strange number here, so we can only speculate. I guess we will never know. But again, pulse rifles should be up to par with any other weapon class in Destiny now. I certainly haven't tried it yet, but we'll try it out on the weekend. I have a couple of pulse rifles of my own. I'll definitely use my Bad Juju or any legendary like the Time on Target, because I want to see this in action, actually look if this makes a significant difference. Now, next up, hand cannons. I'm a huge fan of hand cannons, so at first I was kind of like bummed that they would nerf my favorite weapon class, but actually they adjusted it just so that it actually makes sense what a hand cannon is and how it's supposed to be used. They slightly reduced the effective range, as well as slightly reduced the initial accuracy. That means your first shot is not a across-the-map sniper. Like in the last Iron Banner event, the Hawk Moon was totally overpowered. You could get across-the-map snipes, headshots. So now the initial accuracy that you have with a hand cannon is slightly reduced, which means if you are using it in the intended close to mid to semi-long range, they're still pretty good, but they're not like mini snipers anymore. So basically, even though it's concerning my favorite weapon class, I really like the adjustment right here, just because I feel hand cannons feel more like hand cannons with this update. Fusion rifles. They widened the blast pattern on a fusion rifle burst cone. I like to see that because I died to the murmur halfway across the map or between spawn control points quite a lot. And I was surprised that the blast pattern or the burst cone was that tight actually, that you could like get one-shotted if all of the bullets hit you. They reduced the starting ammunition in PvP so that your secondary weapons are not considered your primaries anymore. Well, the scenario was that you would spawn, for example, with a shotgun, and you would just use it instead of a primary because you have enough secondary ammunition in between the spawn and the first special weapon ammunition chest and picking up ammunition from guardians. So you would never have the need. For example, on the Anomaly, it has been a shotgun map because it's very close quarters, and now you actually have to manage your secondary ammo. So I really like this fix, although I'm not a very big fan of shotguns, but this adjusts the starting ammunition for every fusion rifle. Then we have shotguns. Increased damage against all non-guardian combatants by 2 times. That's 100% increase. Thanks Bungie for pointing that out. They couldn't make it more clear that they now do twice the damage. I guess, well, yeah, that's exactly twice the damage. They reduced the high-end range values. So every shotgun that had a range on the higher end has now been a little bit reduced of a range. The damage fall-off starts sooner. That means if your target is outside of your intended range for your gun, the damage will fall off significantly, and I can confirm this. This is something you really feel with your reduced range and the damage fall-off. As soon as your target gets outside of the intended range of this shotgun, example for Fellwinter's Lie that you could acquire during the last Iron Banner, the damage fall-off is significant. You do a significant amount of damage less if your target is a little bit further away. If you're up close and personal, it doesn't really make a difference at all. And they reduce the starting ammunition in PvP, same as for the fusion rifles. Then that was the weapon tuning. They adjusted the strikes in the form of that weekly heroic strikes now are a match-made activity. So your weekly heroic or your weekly hunt for strange kinds is now actually considered a matchmaking activity. You still need a party of 3 for the weekly nightfall, but you don't need it for the weekly heroic anymore. So this kind of like should help with the casual guardians playing Destiny, getting the amount of coins in to only be disappointed by Xur every Friday. And then strikes will be less likely to repeat in matchmaking rotations for full fire teams. I would love to see this in action. I tried to get this to work tonight, but I didn't play enough strikes to make like a significant, or to make an actual statement about actually this changing. I've been playing the Archon Priest twice and 2 other strikes after that, so that could be just a coincidence or RNG. So I can neither confirm nor deny this adjustment in this short amount of time. And then we have a couple of changes for PvP. In general, players will now unlock all playlists, meaning Control, Clash, Rumble, Skirmish, simultaneously when they unlock the Crucible. There's no staggered unlock of all the Crucible modes as they had before. So you'll unlock all of the modes at the same time when you unlock the Crucible, meaning your Guardian needs to be high enough level or you need to advance in the story further enough. Then they added a new notification when Crucible modes unlock, meaning there's a new pop-up when you log into your character and you have Crucible unlocked, or you're about to unlock Crucible with your character in the current progress. You get a nice pop-up telling you that you can now perform in the Crucible. The Crucible maps will be less likely to repeat in matchmaking for full fire teams. This is the same adjustment they make to the strikes. I can neither confirm nor deny this adjustment. I've played a couple of Crucible matches, and it were just 2 little matches to make a statement. I didn't encounter any doubled map though. Guardians no longer drop heavy ammo when killed in PvP. This is a freaking huge adjustment. Which means whenever heavy ammo gets picked up by a Guardian, before, if you shoot him down, you would be able to pick up his heavy ammo or a portion of the heavy ammo he was carrying and use it yourself. This led to the situation that you, for example, could kill Guardians all over the map, not pick up the heavy ammo, and once your heavy ammo is depleted because you used it all up, you could just pick up the next package. Or you die maybe, then you just pick up the next package. Now that option is no longer available to you. The only heavy ammo that's available to you is the one that you pick up from the heavy ammo chest or from the drop that the heavy ammo chest makes when you're only close but not next to it. And Guardians now drop much less special ammunition when killed in PvP. Again, I think this is kind of a bit of a fusion rifle / shotgun nerf, so that you won't use your fusion rifles or shotgun mainly as primary weapon, because you now have less special ammunition available to you, and you really need to go for those special ammunition chests that are occasionally appearing on the map in fixed locations. They kind of like gain a little bit of significance with that. Then we have completed matches will now award gear with a proper power level. I am not entirely sure what that means, because for me in the Crucible, the power level of the weapon is always 16, something like that. Something between 16 and 20. So I don't know really what this adjustment means. They fixed a bug where there was no audio playing for the bullet that kills them. Who is them in this regard? I don't really know. Fixed a bug where there was no audio playing for the bullet that kills them. The Guardian, maybe? I don't know. I played Crucible quite a amount of the time to acquire quite a amount of kills. I didn't notice any difference in the audio. And then special fix for the Iron Banner event. The Iron Banner playlist now contains smaller maps in rotation. This was announced by Bungie shortly after the last Iron Banner, and they haven't fixed it for the next Iron Banner. Meaning the map, like for example the Anomaly, should have been supposed to be in the Iron Banner February rotation already, but they messed that up. And also the randomness of the Crucible playlist or Iron Banner playlist wasn't really fixed, so I guess they make this work now. The focused aggression bounty, which was so many headshots with an auto rifle, can now be completed with headshots from pulse rifles, scout rifles, and hand cannons. So no need to use an auto rifle if you don't want to. You could use your pulse rifle, your trusty scout rifle, or a nice hand cannon for that to finish. This means that for the next Iron Banner, we'll have a little bit of a more diversity in terms of gun usage, because you would have to use an auto rifle on a daily basis in order to achieve this bounty in the Iron Banner, and you would see a lot of auto rifles. So this is kind of like a bit of a change. And with the pulse rifles buff, as I mentioned above, we might see actually a couple more pulse rifles and not what's the name? The exotic Surus regime all of the time, or most of the time. As I said a couple of videos ago, for me the Iron Banner this month was more of like a Surus regime pissing contest, because that was the most used auto rifle by far, if not the most used weapon at all. And then we have some item adjustments. They fixed an issue in which Xur did not carry exotic engrams in inventory on certain dates. And I was actually surprised that this was deemed a bug, because I thought it was more of a kind of a feature that Xur wouldn't have engrams, exotic engrams all of the time. So I wouldn't have been very surprised if they wouldn't have announced this or wouldn't have fixed it. But I guess we can buy our exotic engrams now more often and don't need to wait a couple of weeks. It's still random what class the exotic engram is for though. Then we have a Crotus and completion emblem will now be sent to the postmaster when player inventory is full. Meaning when you have 9 emblems with you and a 10th equipped, and you finish Crotus, and the emblem that you would net would go to the postmaster instead of you would not get it. It's a nice fix for the ones that carry a lot of emblems around. Then we have ammunition consumables will now work if used when player inventory is full. Last Friday Xur sold heavy ammo synthesis, and a lot of people were complaining that they wouldn't be able to use the heavy ammo synthesis that they just bought fresh from Xur, because the package would not activate when all of your slots in the inventory are occupied. Now they fixed that so that you can have a stack of 5 or up to 20 heavy ammo synthesis. It would use one of them and you would reload your heavy ammo. They fixed an issue that prevented qualifying players who had deleted their characters from claiming the Tumbler Sparrow from Tess Everest in the tower. Meaning, this is a glitch that when you had the Tumbler unlocked because you bought the Dark Below Season Pass before the Dark Below came out, and you deleted your characters, sometimes it would happen that you could not pick up the Tumbler Sparrow from Tess Everest anymore after the Dark Below came out. So that's a nice fix, and everyone that has that happen to him should now be able to use the fix and use the Tumbler Sparrow again. They made quite a few user interfaces changes, and I really like the ones that they did. Mainly the character inventory screen now displays faction reputation and weekly mark counters. That means that you save yourself a couple of trips to the tower just for checking your reputation on New Monarchy, Future Warcold, or Dead Orbit, or even your Crucible or Vanguard faction reputation. You could just see it in the same screen that you would see your Vanguard marks or Crucible marks. Just hover over the little icon and see all of your reputation there in one go. It also includes the one for Ares bounties, and I am assuming that during the Iron Banner or the Queen's Wrath events you would see those reputations as well. Players in public spaces will no longer see voice notifications when a player in a matchmade fire team enters. Okay, kind of a minor thing. And then players will now see improved notifications when teammates join and depart team and fire team chat channels. Okay, I haven't noticed a difference, but to be honest, I didn't pay attention because I didn't know there was something fixed there, so it's not an obvious fix. Then we have a couple of Grimoire cards, and I just want to go over these real quick. The Combined Arms Grimoire card will now unlock when completing a Clash or Control game. The House of Wolves card will now unlock upon the start of Easter Collective story mission. The Guardian Abilities card will now be granted when a player enters orbit. The Siege Dancers card will be granted upon the start of the Dust Palace strike. The completion of Crota's End now adds the raid introduction Grimoire card completed statistics. Yut's Grimoire card will now unlock appropriately. Siege of the Warmind card will now unlock appropriately. And then they fixed a couple of Grimoire card scores for the following cards: Omnigul, Will of Crota, Yut the Death Thinger, Crota, Son of Oryx, The Awakening, The Will of Crota, Crota's End, Ascendant Sword, Pantheon, Skyshock, The Cauldron, Might of Crota, Ghost Fragment Rasputin, Ghost Fragment Rasputin 2, and Ghost Fragment Hive 4. Then they fixed a couple of technical issues. The DLC and patch system has been improved. I think that's the patch they introduced with the adjustment they made prior to 1.1.1 actually dropping. Kind of like giving more flexibility into how they deliver DLCs and patches. The Xbox One upsell from trial version to full version no longer makes you leave the game, which means that when you play the demo version of Destiny on the Xbox One and you decide to get the full version, you don't need to leave the game, you just purchase it and keep on playing. They improved the network resilience to packet reordering. This is kind of like a fraud prevention or hack or cheese prevention method, so that when you forge your routers to reorder your packets in the networking, you could get yourself an advantage or your other players a disadvantage, because the multiplayer content in Destiny is not hosted on any central servers, but on the PlayStation that has probably the best or some kind of like factoring network connection. And if your malicious intent was to harm either the other players or get yourself a unfair advantage, you could reorder your network packets, and now the code is more resilient towards that. And in general, with networking improvements for certain routers. They added a node after the patch node was released, that they introduced a known issue with patch 1.1.1, meaning the Vax Mythoclast spawns with less ammo in the magazine and reserves in the PvP, because the Vax Mythoclast is a fusion rifle and thus treated as a secondary weapon. The weapon was affected by overall fusion rifle changes because it's treated as a secondary weapon, and they intend to correct this issue with a future release. I hope you like these kind of like release notes analysis videos, and please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel for almost daily Destiny content. There's a big old subscribe button in the description box below. Until next time.